Okay, we're going to do part 3 of Fyodor Dostoevsky, and we're going to do some stuff from Brothers Karamazov, including the Grand Inquisitor. I'll also talk about some Karamazov commentaries. So, one of the first lines is the Grand Inquisitor says to Christ when he's come back, "Why have you come back? We have corrected your work. By insisting on freedom, you have made it impossible for the vast majority of men to be saved. You only feed the strong, like Father Zosima and the former monk Alyosha. The others can't handle freedom. You make a mockery of the average man. We do what you should have done." Okay, so anyways, that's essentially what's happening, is the Grand Inquisitor is trying to replace Christ. And he thinks he can do it, but of course he's not Christ. Okay, I'm also going to share with you this commentary by this guy, Daniel Joshua Rubin. I think he wrote a great commentary on Dostoevsky in the Grand Inquisitor chapter. So here's what he has to say. For Dostoevsky, it was essential to believe in Jesus Christ as a supernatural force, not as an abstract idea or ideal. To be fully human, to find contentment in this life, to build a more just and loving society, we must have an unshakable faith in God. And it's actually true. You have to have Christian ethics and you have to believe in God. Otherwise, everything just goes to might is right. And that means money, and that means most people get screwed over. Okay, so in order to make things good, you have to have Christian ethics. You just do. It's a fact. Okay, continuing. He wrote this novel to prove a point, that faith in Christ is essential to human happiness and the evolution of mankind. This, he believed, was our only hope of building a just and kind and compassionate society. I agree, too, because I know the truth about a lot of things that other people don't know. And I can tell you, healthcare, unless you base it on Christian ethics, it'll always be a joke. And currently, it's a joke. The regular public, you guys just don't know what a joke it is. They always choose the treatment that doesn't work. I mean, how insane is that? They drug children with amphetamines. You don't think that's insane? Then you don't know what's going on, okay? It's bad. Okay, he continues. To make his point, he set up a central conflict between the Christian faith and reason in the novel. What we'll explore here is the attack he put on his underlying belief. Its power and its brutality are astonishing. In fact, when the chapter we're going to explore was published, his friends who shared his Christian faith were stunned and feared it would undermine the point of the book. But it didn't. It did exactly the opposite. It's his attack on faith that makes his ultimate embrace of faith so profound and so convincing. At the end of the book, it's only Alyosha, the man of faith, who survives both literally and spiritually. When we last see him, he is comforting a group of boys who have just stood by a dying friend. Alyosha makes a beautiful speech about faith and goodness. The theme of the book not only deals with the moral righteousness of faith, but the intelligence of it. Alyosha is not just the only person who survives. He's the only person who gets it right. He can see the truth that can't be found by logic and reason. And that's exactly the point of the book. This is a magnificent commentary, because this guy is exactly correct. That's the point of Brothers Karamazov. The point of Brothers Karamazov is that the best way to live your life is to live like Alyosha. And Alyosha, that's how my mother was. My mother would pay attention to the people involved in a situation, and she would do whatever was right for the people. She didn't care about the rules or peer pressure or convention. That's why I say my mother was the best person I ever met in my life, because she always did what was right for the people and did not care about convention. She would break every rule in the book to do what was right for people. And that's why she's the greatest person I ever met in my life. Okay, it continues. Here, this is just some more lines. This is the Grand Inquisitor again speaking to Christ. Why hast thou come to hinder us? Oh, by the way, I'm going to put the link to the John Gielgud movie again in this one. This is part 3 of Dostoevsky. Why hast thou come to hinder us? For thou hast come to hinder us, and thou knowest that. But dost thou know what will be tomorrow? I know not who thou art, and care not to know whether it is thou or only a semblance of him. But tomorrow I shall condemn thee, and burn thee at the stake as the worst of heretics. And the very people who today kissed thy feet, tomorrow, at the faintest sign from me, they will rush to heap up the embers of thy fire. Knowest thou that? For 15 centuries we have wrestled with thy freedom, but now it is ended, over for good. Today men are more persuaded than ever that they have perfect freedom, and yet they have bought their freedom to us brought it to us, and laid it humbly at our feet. Dost thou know that the ages will pass, and humanity will proclaim by the lips of their sages that there is no sin, there is only hunger, and we alone shall feed them in thy name, declaring falsely that it is in thy name. In the end, they will lay their freedom at our feet and say to us, make us your slaves, but feed us. The Grand Inquisitor. The greatest book chapter ever written in any book. It's magnificent. Okay, some other lines from Fyodor Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov, the words of Ivan the intellectual, who Dostoevsky saw Ivan as having been corrupted by this hyper-rationality, left-brain thinking of Europe. Okay, and he didn't like that this was being brought to Russia because he thought it was a wrong way to think. So he says, if God is dead, then everything is permitted, even cannibalism. Okay, and that's correct. And that's what we have in the modern world when they take those abort, babies, and they make them into medicines that people eat. Okay, it really is happening. And there's some other lines from Dostoevsky. I want to travel to Europe. I know that I'm only going to a graveyard, but it's a precious graveyard. The goal of human life is more than just staying alive. The goal is finding something to live for. God and the devil are fighting for the heart of men. Sometimes, even if he has to do it alone, and his conduct seems crazy, a man must set an example, and so draw men's souls out of their solitude, and spur them on to some act of brotherly love, that the great idea may not die. Yeah, Christianity is the only thing that can make the world better. And anybody who tells you otherwise, they don't know what they're talking about. Believe me, I studied this issue backwards and forwards. It's the only thing that's going to make things good. It's the only thing that's going to make different people, different cultures, different races, different countries. It's the only thing that's going to make people get along. It's the only thing that works. Okay, we are all responsible for everyone, and I am more responsible than anyone else. Even those who renounce Christianity and criticize it in their innermost being, they will still try to follow the Christian ideal. No one has been able to create a higher ideal of man and virtue than the ideal given by Christ. If you were to destroy in mankind the belief in immortality, not only love, but every living force maintaining the life of the world would at once be dried up. Moreover, everything would be immoral. Nothing would be unlawful, even cannibalism. If someone proved to me that Christ was outside the truth, then I should prefer to remain with Christ than with the truth. If they drive God from the earth, we will shelter him underground. There is nothing more beautiful, more profound, more sympathetic, more reasonable, more courageous, and more perfect than Christ. And there not only isn't, but I tell myself with a jealous love there cannot be. So, that's pretty powerful stuff, okay? That's why he's the greatest novelist that ever lived. Okay. Okay, here's another one. You are told much about your educations, but some beautiful sacred memory preserved since childhood is perhaps the best education. If a man carries such a memory into his adult life, he is saved for the rest of his days. How good life is when someone does something good. Be the sun and all will see you, the man who is happy in fulfilling the purpose of his existence. So yeah, Dostoevsky gets it right, Alyosha gets it right. And that's why I think everybody should read Brothers Karamazov. It's a big book, and a good way to get through it is just listening to the audio CDs. And then, having a copy of the paperback, having the Constance Garnett translation, and just reading whatever parts you want to read. The part you're going to want to read for sure is the Grand Inquisitor. That's the most, there's other real good parts, but that's the big part. It's almost like a giant long soap opera. I mean, it's a big book. How many pages is this book here? About 700 pages, but it is extraordinary. You'll remember it the rest of your life. You can watch the movie first, too. That'll help you understand it. Anyways, that's it for Dostoevsky. Hope that was interesting and helpful.